What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Why is it not loading? My internet is off to a great start on a Tuesday. Are we live on YouTube? Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Just checking that. Had a couple days off over the weekend. That is a rare occurrence at the beginning of the season for us. Nice to get a couple days rest, lose some money in NFL. The usual. What's going on, Cliffy? How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Quite the slate yesterday. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I didn't even realize it was Thanksgiving until I looked at the slate yesterday morning, and I was like, why are there 3 afternoon games?
I thought it was because it was Columbus Day.
I mean, I think that's really the reason, because usually the NHL doesn't cater to Canadian Thanksgiving. But yeah, 3 afternoon games, 3 evening games. I didn't do that bad. Didn't cash the early slate. Not enough Los Angeles, Ottawa. Cash the late slate thanks to Brock Nelson and Ilya Sorokin. Man, what a wild Los Angeles, Ottawa game. I was thinking back. I was like, this seems familiar. And 2 years ago, the second game of the season, Minnesota and Los Angeles played each other. And it was a 7-6 game. And I think there was like 7 goals in the third period or something like that. And then I looked last year, and the third game of the season, Los Angeles and Carolina, was 6-5. So this makes 3 seasons in a row now where one of the first 3 games of the season for Los Angeles is at least 11 goals or more. Obviously 15 yesterday with the overtime loss. That was just a bananas game to watch. And then I got to watch my Montreal Canadiens get their brains beaten by Pittsburgh last night. So, not great to see that, but always happy to cash. Fun slate here coming up tonight. 9 games. Big news in Edmonton, considering what they did to their top line. Obviously, we have Tampa on the slate. That's a big top line at home against Vancouver. Lots of value mixed in the middle. So I think a pretty fun slate ahead of us here tonight.
Yeah, and just want to give a shout out. Thank you to Daily Deposit Frostback, because he told us he was on Montembeau. I'm not even kidding. Cliffy's not even kidding. We both swapped immediately to Sorokin, and we both cashed because of it. So thank you very much, Daily Deposit Frostback, a true legend of the sport.
I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. As soon as the third goal went in on Montembeau, I was like, I don't even care what happens with Sorokin. This was the right swap to make. Yep. Like we say at every show, I've never seen anybody run worse with goalies. I didn't even know this was statistically possible. But yeah, him telling us he was on Montembeau got me off Montembeau and on Sorokin. So appreciate that. Been a rough start for goalies across the league. Colorado and Edmonton notwithstanding. League save percentage as of this morning was .897. Last year was .903, and that .903 was like nearly a 20-year low. So it's even lower than a 20-year low. Probably come up a bit as the season goes on, but we might be looking at another, 2-decade low in save percentage this season. We'll see how the next month or so goes, but I just found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know, like maybe I'm just kind of like not realizing it, but it feels like the totals are higher this year. I remember like a few seasons ago, the norm was 5.5. And then last year, the norm was more 6.5. This year, it just seems like there's 6.5s across the board. Totals are creeping up. Goalie save percentage going down. Maybe that's good for DFS. More fun.
Yeah, definitely more fun. Gets us more goals. What I will say is one thing I found interesting is last year, the lowest month between October, November, and December, so the 2023 portion of the 23-24 season, the lowest goal scoring month was October. So far this year, that is up a lot. So goal scoring up, save percentage down. Again, we're a week into the season. Let's see how the next month or so goes, but interesting start regardless.
For sure. Let's get into the slate. We have huge GPPs on DraftKings. We have a 360 spin with the 100K to first. We have a $15 with 50K to first. The $5 soak check has 10K to first. They finally remembered to post the 40 about 2 hours ago. That has 5K to first. FanDuel has concepts of ideas, but that's really about it. As always, thank you guys so much for the support with your affiliate signups. You can click the link in the chat, sign up weekly or monthly. If you want a 15% off promo code, use promo code Stochastic15. It'll get you 15% off your first week or month. NBA packages launched today. We don't have promo code Hardwood, but I do have 2 really good promo codes for you. You can use promo code TIPOFF24. That'll get you $1 for NBA core access through 10/29. It will renew either weekly or monthly on 10/30. And then if you use promo code everything, it will get you 10% off forever on any of our all access packages until you decide to cancel. The Stochastic bot just put those codes into the chat. So if you are an NBA player, you can get the NBA core for $1 until the 29th. Or if you do play all the sports, the everything package seems like a good idea. So you click the link in the chat below. If you are an NBA or hockey player, you can sign up with those promo codes. Promo code JustTheTip24, Hardwood. You know how it goes. But yeah, let's get into this slate because this is a doozy. Edmonton reunited their big boys. We have Tampa 1, who's around that price range, and then 2 other lines above 20K. It seems like pricing is still soft, but Eichel randomly went from like $6,100 to $9 million. He was like the only guy who got really price tough. So now Vegas is over 20K. New Jersey Devils is over 20K. And then we have Tampa and Edmonton 1 around 25K. But it seems like ownership is going to be fairly spread out here. There are a couple of chalky spots that we will get to, but we should get into this slate. First game of the night, Vancouver Canucks heading into Tampa. Vancouver has a 3.1 total. Tampa has a 3.4. Let's see here. Tampa. This is Tampa's home opener, I believe, because it was canceled on this past Saturday because of Hurricane Milton. Tyler Myers is a game-time decision. Tampa Bay going to Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Hagel, Cirelli, Paul. Vancouver going Miller, Besser, Arshdeep, Baines, Pedersen, DeBrusk, Danton, Heinen. This is interesting because now with Edmonton 1, 25-1, and Tampa 1, 24-6, that's going to spread out ownership for the really expensive lines. This is a pretty good spot for Tampa 1. At home, they can dictate matchups. They should. I mean, that top line's definitely still going to see some JT Miller. They're still going to see some Hughes pairing. But it is Vos in net, and he looked awful. He's not a very good goalie. He is not – I still think Kevin Lankinen's better, and obviously Thatcher Demko is the best of them. This is a really good spot for Tampa 1. Until Demko's back, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, we're stacking against Van because it's the goalie. Not necessarily that it's a great matchup. It's just the goalie isn't great. Tampa 1 is fully correlated. They have almost a 30% top 2 stack. They have a lot of positive leverage. The only thing is price. Is Tampa at home to Vancouver a better matchup than Edmonton at home to Philly? Maybe a little. I mean, Philadelphia is a good defensive team. Again, it's the goalies that are issues. So if you are playing one lineup and you want to spend up, you're going to have to make a decision there. I do really like Tampa 1 here. You saw Kucherov just kind of cherry pick at the empty net. So if it is an empty net situation, they'll probably be on for that. Tampa 2 is a bit interesting. I don't mind them as a filler. Hagel, Cirelli, Paul. They're probably going to avoid the Hughes pairing for the most part. They are on my list for filler lines if you are spending up for an expensive line. On the Vancouver side, no one seems to be playing them, and they're not super expensive. I do like the Pedersen DeBrusque Heinen line here at 15K on DraftKings. I'm not saying I'm going to play them in my single entry. They are on a very long list for this slate for my 1 to 3, but they are coming in at 2.2% projected ownership at 15K. DeBrusque and Pedersen are on the top power play. Let's not pretend Tampa is a good defensive team. They haven't been great for 2.5 seasons now. So Tampa 1 is my favorite line in this game, but I think Vancouver you should at least consider.
Yeah, Tampa. I mean, Tampa leads the top 2 stacks here tonight. They certainly lead this game, 29.2%. Next closest line's at 3%. So, like, they're obviously they're the best line here. 24,600 is a lot. And Vancouver is generally a pretty good defensive team. The difference is, as you mentioned, it's that it's Shilov's in net, and it's not even Lankinen, let alone Demko. Like, Demko is, when he's healthy, is probably one of the 5 or 6 best goalies in the league. Like, any backup is going to be a big step down from him. So, like, Tampa doesn't need 35 shots to get 5 goals here tonight, right? Like, they can probably do it on like 20. So even great defense by Vancouver might not be enough. Our buddy Quick Party, who does line matching on Twitter, he has that Cirelli, Paul, Hagel line going out against Miller, Besser, and Archdeep Baines. That Cirelli, Hagel, and Paul line was really, really good defensively last season. Only 8.6 high danger shot attempts against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like, that is very, very good. That is next to nothing. Just to put it in perspective, like, the Vegas top line this year, which has been good defensively, is at like 9.5. These guys are at 8.6. Like, they are a very good defensive line. That worries me for the Miller, Besser, Baines line. It also worries me how long Baines is actually going to last on that line. He had a good AHL season. He is not considered a top prospect. I write over at Elite Prospects Rinkside. I was reading the Elite Prospects profile on him. It's like, he can't generate offense by himself. He needs other people to do it for him. He can clean up, rebounds and stuff around the net. So if he can do that, like, he can probably get along just fine, but he's not a fast skater. He doesn't play quick. That's the first thing I noticed about Vancouver when I watched them in their second game of the season. They were playing a lot faster than they were last year. Last year, it seemed like they were plodding at times. This year, it looks like they're making a big effort to get up the ice very, very quickly. Whether Baines can keep up, I think, is a fair question. I don't know if he lasts the game on the top line. I can easily see, Garland or Hogland or someone moving into the top 6. So I don't really like stacking anything from the Vancouver side. If anything from Vancouver, it actually is the Miller line. They do grade out as a pretty good value for me. Again, the problem here is I'm not sure that Baines lasts. I think I'd almost prefer just doing a Miller, Besser 2-man and walking away than full stacking the line. DeBrusque, I think, on DraftKings makes sense as a one-off, 4,400. I wrote about him in the picks article today. He's at 53%. It's just a couple games. 53% of the power play time. Last time he had over 50% of the power play time in his career. He put up 27 goals and nearly 3 shots per game in 64 games for the Bruins. So he can be like a 30-goal, 3-shot per game guy with the usage that he's getting. So as long as he stays top 6, top power play, and he's 4,400 on DraftKings, I like DeBrusque as a one-off, but I don't really like full stacking any of the even strength lines really on the Vancouver side. Tampa side, like I said, obviously I really do like Tampa 1 here, but a lot of it is goalie based, and we know how goalies can be. All they need is just one decent night and it all gets shot. So there are a bunch of expensive lines on the slate tonight, and the thing is like, nobody's getting a ton of ownership. It's not like one of those like the Colorado night we had on Saturday or whatever, where it's like 25%. They're all going to be low single digits, or single digits at least. So I think you can kind of pick or choose. And if I was to pick one of the expensive lines, it probably wouldn't be Tampa. But like, I'm not going to say don't play them just because I'm with you. I don't have any faith in Shelov's in net. And Tampa can score 4 or 5 goals on 20 shots past this guy because they do create pretty good quality. So if anything in this game, I'm stacking Tampa 1. But I think this is a game where I'm more like one-offs, maybe pairs, but that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. See Frostback rolling into the chat late after I give him a segment on how he got the whole stochastic Discord to swap from Montembeau to Sorokin and everyone cashed except for him. We appreciate you. I'm going to have to start Venmoing him for his work. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.1 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 2.8 total. Vegas with Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev on the top line. That line has gone from like 17 and change to 20,400 overnight. Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Holtz on the second line. It took one game for Andrew Mangiapane to be out of the top 6. He now is on the third line. The top line is Ovechkin, Strome, and Protas. Wilson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Connor McMichael. Third line of Andrew Mangiapane, Hendrik Laperriere, and Jakub Vrana. I'm a little bit mum here on Vegas. Washington's at home. They're probably going to send out the Nick Dowd line a fair bit against Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev. Say what you want about that. That line is very good defensively. Dowd has been. He doesn't have a huge sample with Radish and Duhaime, but Duhaime has been a pretty decent defensive player his career. So that line's going to go out a fair bit against the Eichel, Stone, Barbashev line. Now, the Eichel, Stone, Barbashev line arguably has been the best line in the NHL to start the season. They have been firing on all cylinders. They still are coming in with positive leverage, 10.2% top stack. The price on Eichel is deserved. It's just crazy that the only person who got his price adjusted like that was Eichel. I think in MME, they're fine. They'll probably be one of my first or second cuts in my single entry. I think I like other spots better. That Hurdle Dorofeyev Holtz line is just playing at an unbelievably slow pace. And that doesn't interest me, especially against Washington, who just maybe this team will be different, but last year they played at a sludge pace. So for me, honestly, like if you want to one-off a Victor Olofsson or something, that's fine. But for me, my interest honestly lies on the Washington side. If you want to go to the top line, that's fine. They're 13-5. They have a little bit of negative leverage. Strome and Alexei Protas have a pretty nitrous sample together. They play at a pretty high pace. You throw Ovechkin into the mix, and it's going to be quite a scene on both ends of the ice. They'll probably see, a fair bit of either the Hurdle or the Nick Roy line. It's not the worst matchups. The Hurdle line's playing at a pretty slow pace. That's fine. So for me, in this game, honestly, my favorite line is Pierre-Luc Dubois, Tom Wilson, Connor McMichael. One of the issues that we've had with Dubois once he left Winnipeg was ice time, especially in LA on that third line, who's playing like 15 minutes a game. It's a cherry-picked small sample, one of my favorite things to do. In the first game, he played, I think, 17 and a half, 18 minutes. He is on the top power play unit. Tom Wilson's also on the top power play unit. They'll see, middle 6 matchups. It's a good filler line. They're 10,700. You can fit them with almost anybody. You can leave McMichael off if you want. Just do like a Dubois-Wilson. This game's an MME game for me. But if I am stacking Edmonton, if I am Tampa power play stacking, something like that, I would consider Pierre-Luc Dubois, Tom Wilson.
Yeah. The top stacks at Stokastic has Vegas one as one of the 6 lines to be at least 10% tonight. They're coming in 5th between New Jersey and the Minnesota top line. So obviously there is a lot of reason to play Vegas 1. When I ran Vegas through my projections using the stochastic ownership, based on their salary, I have them closer to like a top 10 line. So nothing that's like super must play for me tonight. The one thing that does worry me is that, I guess, 2 things. One, you're right about Nick Dowd. Like, it seems like it doesn't matter who he plays with. Like, he's just really good defensively. Like, he could probably drag like a Sonny Milano, Jakub Vrana line to defensive respectability. You know what I mean? So that does concern me at 5-on-5. Obviously, there's a lot of shooting percentage regression coming for that Vegas top line. They're just they're scoring well above where they should. I mean, it's a small sample. It's 1 week. Like, that's what happens at this point of the season. The other thing is, like, Washington doesn't take a ton of penalties. At least they didn't last year. They're at 2.8 times shorthanded per game. That was below the league average. Not that Vegas typically draws a lot of penalties, but their power play has been pretty good to start this year. So if they only get a couple power plays, like, that is something that concerns me a little bit on the Vegas side. You know, the Washington penalty kill wasn't great last year, but it wasn't like bottom 10 or anything. It wasn't like San Jose, Montreal level. It was closer towards the middle of the league. So based on the price jump and all that, and the fact that they're not perfectly correlated, that they're on the road, like, I have no issue playing Vegas. Like, they are, 5th by top 2 stack percentage, positive leverage. You know, Eichel and Stone are going to play a ton of minutes. Even Barbashev without the top power play time, because probably going to play like 17, 18 minutes. So, like, really, I have no issue playing Vegas. I just think it's a little bit of a tough matchup. And in that price range, there are just other lines that I think I'm going to target. Kind of with you. I think I like the Washington side a little bit more. I did write up Pierre-Luc Dubois in the picks article, free to read, over at stochastic.com. You're right. 17:28 in the opener. It's about a minute 40 more than what he got last year. What I note as well is he's playing with Tom Wilson. And don't get me wrong, we've all made our Tom Wilson jokes over the years.
He's good offensively, though.
For several years. Yeah. He was only one of 4 Washington forwards last year to be on the ice for more high danger shots for than against. He is not a bad 2-way player. I think his impact is actually more helpful on the power play. But Dubois plays with him on the power play. So, like, I don't mind that Washington third line, that Washington second line as a filler stack. They are really cheap. 10,700, 1% top 2 stack, 2.2% ownership. I think they're perfectly fine. The Ovechkin-Strome protest line, like, the fact that it took 1 game for Mangiapane to get moved off, I think tells us that Protas doesn't have a long leash either. I kind of put him in the RHD Baines bin, where, like, if the second period rolls around, Protas is back down on the 3rd or 4th line, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. This guy isn't a top-line player. I think it's just trying to help them along defensively because God knows Ovechkin needs it. Should also note Ovechkin playing on the right wing, I believe. Something he's done very, very infrequently in his career. So, Ovechkin on a new side, a guy that's probably not going to last on the top line. They aren't really that great offensively anyways. I think the Wilson, Dubois, McMichael line is what I like best in this game. I'm interested to see how Mangiapane, Vrana, and Lapierre do. That feels like one of those lines they're going to struggle defensively, but they're going to create well offensively. Not that I'm targeting them on a 9-game slate, but it's Wilson, Dubois, McMichael that I think I like best considering price in this game. But obviously, Vegas 1 is certainly in play. If you want to keep riding the hot hand until the wheels fall off, I really can't argue with that.
Yeah. And Ovechkin moving from the left to right side, I don't think will affect him defensively. He doesn't play defense anyway. It's just a matter of his shooting is going to be at different angles. I don't know. Like, it could have an effect. It might not. There's no way to put that into perspective, but defensively, like, he already just doesn't play defense, so it really doesn't matter. New Jersey Devils with a 2.8 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 3.2. Devils played yesterday afternoon. They won 3-0 against Utah. Back at it going into Carolina. Not great for that top line. You're going to get a nice matchup with Jordan Staal. that throws New Jersey Devils 1 into the MME bin for me. In 1 to 3, I will look elsewhere. If I just the way I personally play, if I'm playing the Devils top line going against Stahl on a 9-game slate, I should go get a CAT scan. That's just not something that I do, but I think there is some merit to playing them at their ownership in MME. Want to go to Heischer, Mercer, Tatar, like they'll be in a filler basket for me. I don't particularly love them, as news just came across that the Bills just traded for Amari Cooper from the Browns. Yay, football. I'm not super high on the Devils here, back-to-back on the road. Carolina is where I get interested, and it'll be that Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis line, 18,300. 9.4% top stack, just outside the top 6. 6.2% projected ownership, so they have positive leverage. It is Markstrom in net, but it is back-to-back on the road. They're going to probably see the middle 6. And, the Heischer line's okay. The Hall line's okay. But nothing that's going to stop me from stacking them. They've had excellent numbers so far this season. They're very high event. They're creating a lot of dangerous chances. They're fully correlated on the power play. Not that the Devils have a bad penalty kill or anything, but it just adds into why I want to stack them. They're 18,300. This is a line that if they start scoring on top of all the creating that they're doing, they'll be 20,000 in no time. I like Carolina 1 here. I think a Martin Necas one-off is fine. That line as a whole is coming in with too much negative leverage for Kotkaniemi, Jack Roslovic line, but Necas is on the top power play, so I think that's fine. Honestly, I think if you need a really cheap filler, that Stahl line is fine because, Hughes, Bratt, Timo Meier are very good offensively, but they've given it up a lot defensively to start this season. They've been, bailed out by the goalies or whatever, but if you are a power play stacking Edmonton, you need a cheap 2-man. I think a Stahl, Carrier, Martineau, Carrier, whatever you want to do, 2 of the guys, perfectly fine there at 9K. So this is a Carolina game for me.
Yeah. Not only is it back-to-back on the road for New Jersey, but I mentioned this on Twitter. This is their 6th game in 12 days, 2 back-to-backs, and a trip to Europe in there, right? This is not a team that has had very much rest over the last couple of weeks. And, it is early in the season, but eventually it's just a really heavy schedule that they have to play through. Honestly, I don't mind playing New Jersey 1 here. I don't think I would play them in single entry. We'll talk about Edmonton later. I would probably just pay up and just go play Edmonton. I might even play Tampa Bay instead. Just pay the extra 3K and go play one of those lines. If I was 20 maxing tonight, I don't have a problem with playing New Jersey. The reason is this. They took Timo Meier off the top power play unit and put Stefan Nason there. And Stefan Nason is the stone mint 2,500 on DK here tonight. He's $3,600 cheaper than Myers. So you can get, Nason's down on the 3rd line, but you can get a Hughes, Bratt, Nason line in there for under 18K. That's something that does interest me. You know what I mean? Just because it is pretty cheap. Yes, it's a broken stack. Yes, Carolina usually has a good penalty kill, but considering there's absolutely no ownership coming in, almost no ownership coming in on New Jersey, that kind of stack is something that would appeal to me if I was, 20 maxing, certainly if I was 150 maxing. I do worry about Timo Meier. Like I said, he lost his power play role. Ice time's gone down a bit since they came back from Europe. If he's closer to if he's 17 minutes a game, power play 2, as opposed to 19 minutes a game, power play 1, that's a different player and a different offensive profile. That's what's concerning to me about New Jersey's top line. So I'm out on Hughes, Bratt, Meier, kind of in on Hughes, Bratt, Nason. If you want to, just play Nason as a 2,500 one-off, right? The guy's min price on the top power play unit. So I think that's definitely in play. I do kind of like that New Jersey second line. Hischier and Tatar whenever they've been together, whether it be to start this season or when Tatar was there a couple of years ago, they played extremely, extremely well together. So far this season, 69 shot attempts, 7.8 high danger shots per 60 minutes. That's not bad. Mercer's playing like 18 minutes. Nico Hischier's probably closer to 20. Tatar doesn't play a lot, but at his price, he doesn't need a lot. They're going to completely avoid the Jordan Staal line. And once you get into those second and third lines for Carolina, I think that are, the first and second lines for Carolina, I guess that's where they can kind of be had. Like, I don't mind New Jersey too that much. I'm going to be honest, from the Devils, I think it's just picking one-offs that I would prefer, because there are cheap one-offs to like here. Like, I think especially Nason makes a pretty good one-off. I think Dawson
Narrative Street there too.
What's that?
If you live on Narrative Street, that's a big narrative for him too.
Yeah, returning to Carolina. Dawson Mercer is getting a lot of ice time for fairly cheap. So I think I like New Jersey better for one-offs than full stacking. On the Carolina side, I mean, I do like that top line. I didn't think they've only played one game, and I watched that game at home against Tampa Bay. It was the game they lost. They only scored one goal, but like in a span of 3 minutes, Andrei Svechnikov had a breakaway that was saved, had a 2-on-1 where he missed the net, and had another pretty good chance that was saved. Like in a different universe, he probably comes out of that game with like 2 goals and an assist with 4 shots or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's not like they played poorly. I think there's a reason why they're going right back to that line. I'm not super like I said, with New Jersey playing so much lately, I'm not super concerned with the Devils. So Carolina won 9.4% top 2 stacks, 6.2% ownership. I really do like that line here tonight. I think that's the line that I like, that I prefer in this game. So Carolina won for me. Other than that, I think it's mostly just picking cheap one-offs. Amongst them, probably Stefan Nason on the New Jersey side and Will Carrier on the Carolina side.
Who is your boy on Edmonton who has always been priced and played like 9 minutes?
Alex Chiasson?
Alex Chiasson. Stefan Nason, your new Chiasson.
I mean, listen, like, just real quickly, like, Nason's just not some guy that they're putting on the top power play. If, like, Evolving Hockey, which is an advanced stats website, has his power play impact as, like, a top an 80th percentile guy, like top 20-25% of all regular power play forwards in the league. Like, it was something close to like Jesper Bratt, pretty much. He is a very, very good player in front of the net. In fact, Chiasson's probably a pretty good comparison for him. He's really good in front of the net. There's a reason why he got moved to the top power play unit. So I do think he makes sense for stone min price if you need to save some salary here tonight.
And there are reasons to save some salary tonight. That is for sure. Let's move on to an absolute festival. Florida Panthers with a 3.5 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 2.9, probably their highest total since 2011 when Rick Nash was still there. Rick Nash was there like in 2003. But this game has a lot of ownership, and it makes me very uncomfortable. For multiple reasons. 1, Columbus sucks. 2, Florida's played, they're back-to-back on the road. They played Boston yesterday at home. Were they home? No, it was in Boston.
No, Florida was in Boston.
In Boston. Now they're in Columbus. Kachuk is still out. Barkov's still out. Top line of Verhaeghe, Bennett, Erod, 17-3, coming in with almost 21% projected ownership. Reinhart, Lundell, Luosterainen coming in at almost 14% ownership. I will say Sam Reinhart has played a ton this season. He's only been on the ice for 1 goal against. That, it doesn't really matter who he's been playing with. That line has been incredible. At 21% for Verhaeghe, Bennett, Erod, like on a 9-game slate, back-to-back on the road. The only reason to play them is Columbus is god-awful. But, like, I don't want to, like, 21% makes me nervous in single entry. Not that, like, I care about ownership. It's just, like, there are other spots that I can get comparably as good with way less ownership. I think if I'm going to play Florida, it's going to be Reinhart, Lundell, Luosterainen. Like, I still have issues with the Florida power play. I know they scored a couple power play goals. Like, if for some reason they don't win the draw, they're going to have trouble entering the zone and setting up. Now, it is Columbus, and they are just a train wreck, so maybe that doesn't even matter. But, like, no, Barkov does worry me a little bit. Lundell has looked very good in his minutes boost. Reinhart, we've talked about. He's an excellent player. Luosterainen is good. Like, at 15-1 and a little bit more, a tiny bit more negative leverage, but the ownership's lower, that would be the line on Florida that I'm more willing to play. On the Columbus side, their top two lines, quote unquote, because really they treat the Fantilli Van Riemsdyk line as the third line. Yegor Chinnikov, Marchenko, Sean Monahan coming in with 11.5% projected ownership. Sillinger, Kent Johnson, baby, 10% projected ownership. It's probably going to be Spencer Knight in that. But, like, and they're so cheap that they're fillers. But, like, do you really want to be playing double-digit Columbus Blue Jackets on a 9-game slate against the defending Stanley Cup champions? I don't. Like, if they were like 2-3%, I still wouldn't. Like, 10%, really? Like, I just don't want to do it. If you want to one-off a Chinnikov, you want to one-off a Kent Johnson, yippee-ki-yay, I'll send you on your way. But, like, full stacking those lines at that ownership on this slate, like, just feels disgusting. So ownership in this game is making me very nervous, and it makes me want to fade everything except for the Lundell line and maybe a couple one-offs on Columbus.
It's funny that you mentioned the Columbus ownership. I was just looking at some line movement, and since this morning, Columbus has gone from plus 145 to plus 120. So people are hammering the Blue Jackets here tonight.
Why?
Here's the thing. Like, I know they were really bad last year. You have to give it to them for the first two games. It was a 1-goal game against Minnesota, and they beat Colorado in Colorado. Now, I know Colorado's goaltending has been atrocious to start this season, but I wrote about Yegor Chinnikov in the picks article. In the two games, remember, Columbus was on the road in Minnesota and Colorado. Shots for and against were 46-46, and they had more high-danger chances than the other team. So they went into Minnesota, into Colorado, and won the high-danger shot battle. Now, we should note, almost all of it was because of the top line. I think the top line went like +7 or something like that. So it was Chinnikov, Monahan, and Marchenko, and then the depth, hit or miss. So that's why I wrote up Chinnikov in the picks article. Like, those guys are playing like 19 to 21 minutes. Like, they're playing a lot. Like, Marchenko's a little bit less. I think he's been closer to like 17 and a half, 18 minutes, but Chinnikov's over 19. I think Monahan's getting close to 20. They're getting a lot of ice time. And like Chinnikov and Marchenko, going back to last year in a 350-minute sample, are basically even by high danger chances for and against. So that's a top line that is basically even going back to last year, at least two wingers. And they're pretty cheap. That's the entire problem. It's 11,300. It's a top line that could all play 19 minutes at 11,300. And the thing with Florida is, like, not only is it back-to-back on the road, it's 3-4 on the road and 4-6 on the road without Barkov, without Tkachuk. Like, it's kind of that New Jersey problem. It's like, when is this team going to run out of steam a little bit? Maybe that doesn't happen. But, Columbus playing their home opener after everything that happened in the offseason. The team has played pretty well in the first couple of games. Like, it feels bad because this feels like San Jose last year, right? Where the top line is going to play like 19, 20 minutes. They're going to play, a couple of the guys are going to play on the power play. They're probably going to be good offensively, but they're never going to get priced up. And because of that, it's that gambit of, like, do you want to play the over-owned top line because they're going to be over-owned all the time? I think Columbus 1 is playable. That would be the line that I would go to. Like, for me, it'd be Chinnikov, Marchenko, and Monahan. You know they're going to get the minutes. Two out of the three guys are on the power play. The Columbus power plays looked half decent to start the year, which is not something that I expected. Florida typically takes a lot of penalties. I think it'd be Chinnikov, Marchenko, and Monahan for me. Other than that, like if you want to go to a Sillinger, Johnson, two-man or something, like that's fine. But I think it's the Columbus top line. Like if you want to choke in the ownership, I think you're fine to go ahead. It's not something that I'm targeting outright, but I do think they are playable even at like 10%. The Florida side is a little bit more interesting for me just because they're coming in with a lot of ownership, but they are fairly cheap. Verhaeghe, Bennett, Rodriguez, all on the top line together. The problem I have with that is like Bennett and Rodriguez typically aren't efficient finishers. Like they kind of need Kachuk for that. I'm not sure Verhaeghe can do that. Like Verhaeghe's a finisher himself. He's not like he's a good playmaker. He's not a great one. I think on the Florida side, I'd be fine with one-offs. Like I think a one-off Rodriguez makes a lot of sense. One-off Bennett. I think just even one-offing Sam Reinhart makes sense because like honestly, if the Columbus power play isn't sharp, like Reinhart can go pop a short-handed goal. Like him and Travis Konechny are and probably like JT Miller or Elias Pettersson are elite guys in making power plays pay for mistakes. So I think even a one-off Reinhart makes sense. But honestly, I do think I like the Columbus side better. And it feels bad because there's going to be a lot of people playing Columbus here tonight.
Yeah, and I don't want to. Ow, I just bit my tongue. That's how much they are making me nervous. Like, maybe I one-off Fantilli. He's been playing 15, 16 minutes. But, like, playing Marchenko at, like, 12% on a 9-game slate just feels – if I had hair, I'd go wash it after this show. We'll just say that. Minnesota Wild with a 3 total. Heading to St. Louis, the Blues have a 2.9 total. Joel Eriksson X still out. Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi on the top line. Boldy, Hartman, and it's not Marcus Johansson. It's Liam Ogren, right?
Well, it might be Johansson. They said he's officially a game time decision. But if it's not, it's going to be Liam Ogren.
That's kind of important, right? Because the Kyrou Buchnevich pairing has been god-awful defensively. And you do get Hartman and Boldy on the top power play unit, and they're fairly cheap. They get cheaper with Liam Ogren. Like Thomas Neighbors, Saad. I mean, Saad hasn't really played up there. You take Thomas and Neighbors sample. They've been like the definition of league average this season. So you get Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi against the league average line. I don't mind it at 19-2. They're over 10% on the top stacks. Their ownership's about a half of their top 2 stack. You get positive leverage there. Like the Blues don't take a ton of penalties, but when they do, they have trouble killing them. I kind of like Minnesota top line here. I think the second line's in play just from the fact that like there's no universe where Buchnevich, Kyrou, Bolduc are going to be good defensively. So I don't mind the Minnesota top 6 here. On the Blues side, man, like I'd go to the Thomas Neighbors side here. I don't love them. I'll throw them in my filler pool. Honestly, like a one-off Braden Shen might be my favorite thing to do on the Blues here, just because that line, they just are playing pond hockey, and Shen gets his minutes. Like, I don't love the Blues in the spot despite the total. Like a one-off Buchnevich is fine. One-off Kyrou, Thomas Neighbors, 2-man is fine. I kind of like Braden Shen here. Like, I'm not saying go out and play him in a single entry, but like, I'm going from like telling people playing Columbus at that ownership sucks and then recommending a Braden Shen one-off. It's just like, what have we become? It's not even November yet. But like, I don't mind it. But this is honestly a Minnesota game.
So something interesting while I was looking at this game today. There are 4 teams in the NHL that have given up at least 15 high danger shots against or more per 60 minutes to start the season. 3 of those teams are Anaheim, Montreal, and Chicago, which makes complete sense. And the 4th team is St. Louis. People, it's easy to forget, they got ran out of the rink against Seattle. Seattle just had bad goaltending for 4 minutes, and it cost them the game. St. Louis honestly hasn't looked that good. Like Zach Bolduc is kind of in that Archie Baines bin again for me, where like if Bolduc's off the second line by the middle of the period, second period, or middle of the first period, it wouldn't surprise me in the least little bit. So I have concerns about full stacking them. What I will say is that St. Louis line does grade out fairly well for me as a value stack based on low ownership and reasonable pricing. That worries me, honestly, because I hate relying on the St. Louis Blues. But I honestly don't mind Kyrou, Buchnevich, and even if you want to throw Bolduc in because he's so cheap, I think that's fine. 3,300 is a little bit expensive, but I don't think it's really that bad. If you want to just put Buchnevich and Kyrou in, I think that's okay. The reason is, like, it's not taking long, but the Minnesota penalty kill looks like trash again. And this was one of the worst penalty killing teams in the league last season, regardless of which coach they had behind the bench. And so far to start this season, second most high danger shots against on the penalty kill, most shot attempts against, most shots against. Like, it's not taking long for this penalty kill to look like they're terrible again. So that's why I kind of like Buchnevich and Kyrou as well. Is like, I don't mind them at 5-on-5 here. They grade out as a decent value, and I think it's a pretty good power play spot for them. If you want to take Bolduc off and put on like Neighbors or gold double center and put on Robert Thomas, I think that's perfectly fine as well. But I think Kyrou, Buchnevich, Bolduc are definitely in play just because that Minnesota penalty kill sucks so much ass. And it's one of those things, it's like, until they prove that they're not terrible, I don't know why you wouldn't pick on them, right? Like, that's just kind of the way it goes. Maybe St. Louis goes 0 for 4 on the power play here tonight. You know, that's the way hockey goes. But until Minnesota can actually string together a couple weeks where the penalty kill isn't costing them, I think it's pretty fair to keep picking on them. On the Minnesota side, I wrote up Matt Boldy in the picks article today. He's projecting extremely well for his price. He was a top 6 winger, both DraftKings and FanDuel, when I wrote that article today. You know, a couple games over 18 minutes, one game over 20 minutes, so he is getting a fair amount of ice time. I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't mind that second line. And whether it's Johansson or Ogren, it doesn't really change a lot for me. Like, Ogren is a really good prospect. He's a guy that I've liked ever since Minnesota drafted him. I don't know if he can fit in on a second line of what hopes to be a playoff team right away, but I don't think he's not just some filler AHL guy that they're calling up. This is a guy that it's kind of like Marco Rossi, probably should be a staple of this team for the next decade. So I don't mind Boldy, Hartman, and, you know, whether it's Johansson or Ogren, I don't mind. You know, not going to argue with going to Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello, obviously, but I think it's both second lines in this game that I like best. Also should note, no Eric Sinek and no Jared Spurgeon. Like, that takes a lot out of this Minnesota lineup. We saw last year just how much not having Spurgeon and, you know, Brodin for a fair bit hurt the team defensively. I think until they get Spurgeon back, I'm not that worried about this team from a defensive perspective.
Yeah. And they're running a 3-goalie rotation. Hard to stay sharp in a 3-goalie rotation. Seattle, the 2.7 total. Heading into Nashville, the Preds have a 3.3. Now, Predators are home. They're going with Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, Stamkos, Marchessault, Cole Smith, and then Evangelista Novak. Seattle going McCann, Eberle, Shane Wright, Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, Schwartz, Beniers, Tolvin, and Burakovsky. Now, the same issues hold true for Seattle that they did last year. Different coach, same ice time result. They're running 4 lines. Everyone's within 3 minutes of each other. No one's playing heavy minutes. I don't have a ton of interest in Seattle from that perspective, but Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, Schwartz fully correlated. I'll never say no to a McCann one-off. Shane Wright being between Eberle and McCann is interesting. I don't think this is the slate for it. Nashville, line matching is kind of important, but again, it's not because Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, right? Forsberg's been playing 20 minutes a night. O'Reilly's been playing 22 minutes a night, and Nyquist has been playing 18, and he got to 20 the last game. So, none of the Seattle guys get close to that. So Nashville is going to be seeing a whole bunch of different lines there. I do really like Nashville 1 here tonight. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist. You want to take Nyquist off and add in Marchessault or Stamkos, something like that, to get some more power play. It's fine. Seattle doesn't have a terrible penalty kill, but I'm fine with Nashville 1 here. 9.5% projected ownership, 8.9% ownership, 9.5 top 2 stack, 8.9% projected ownership, a little bit of positive leverage. I do really like them. 18-2 is a tasty price. It's my favorite line in this game. Nashville 2 is fine, but I think I'm going to go to the heavy minutes of Forsberg and O'Reilly.
Yeah, I wrote about that second line today, or that top line, sorry, the Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist line over at Stochastic. Again, free to read if you want to go check it out in the NHL section. They haven't scored yet at 5-on-5, but outshot the opponent 12-3 with a 4-2 advantage in high danger chances. So they keep dominating like that. They're eventually going to start scoring. I'm not Seattle I think is a good team, but they're not one of those teams where I'm I really don't know if I should play anybody against them. They're not an elite defensive team, I don't think. What I wrote about in that picks article is that top line is getting a lot of ice time. Even if Nyquist isn't on the top power play, he's over 14.45 per game in even strength ice time. The entire top line is at even strength, and Forsberg was the only one to reset mark last year. At least through the first couple games, Nashville is really, really relying on the top of its lineup to kind of pull them through. So if they're going to get, if Nyquist is going to be at the bottom of the list, getting 17 to 18 minutes, and then O'Reilly and Forsberg are going to be 20 plus, I do like Nashville 1 here. I'm not concerned about any of the Seattle matchups. Nashville 2, with Cole Smith there, put Cole Smith in the same bin as RC Baines, as Alexei Protas, as Zach Bolduc. It's after the first period, I could see Tommy Novak back there or Colton Sissons back there. Unless Nashville goes up 3-0 in the first, I'm not sure Smith lasts the game there. So, I kind of agree with you. If you want to take Nyquist off, put Marchessault on the top line power play stack, I think that's perfectly fine. Stamkos, one or the other. But it is Nashville 1 I like best on that side. On the Seattle side, I was telling you before the show that I took my own personal projections as well as the Stochastic ownership projections. I created a value ranking, and Seattle 1, the McCann, Eberle, Shane Wright line is at the top, and then the Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, and Schwartz line isn't that far behind. So 2 of the best value lines based on projection, ownership, and price for me is from Seattle. And we can be honest here for a second, right? Nashville wasn't a great defensive team last year, right? On a per game basis, they gave up 30.4 shots per game. That's more than Pittsburgh and Washington. They gave up 3 goals per 60 minutes, basically in the middle of the league, same as St. Louis and Washington. This is not an elite defensive team. They got rid of Ryan McDonough. And there's a reason why Roman Yossi's been playing 29 minutes. It's because most of that blue line is not very good. And the Nashville second line has been trading chances right out of the gate, just like we said that they probably would. And the Nashville top line is average at best defensively. I'm not super concerned about the Nashville side from a defensive perspective. What I'm worried about is what you said, is that every single 10 of their 12 forwards is playing between 13 and 17 minutes, and then Chandler Stevenson's at 19 and a half. That's the problem. For 15,200, McCann and Eberle, they do have a pretty good sample together going back to last year. 11.3 high danger shots for, 9.9 against per 60, nearly 4 goals per 60 minutes. shooting nearly 12%, but even 10% would have them well above average scoring wise. I don't mind McCann, Eberle, and Shane Wright here. Shane Wright looked impressive in the first Seattle game that I watched. I think there's a reason why he's being put with McCann and Eberle is probably because he can play very, very well with them. I don't mind Seattle one here. So I think it's both top lines for me. Schwartz, Stevenson, and Bjorkstrand is interesting because they're all in the same power play unit together, and Seattle is spreading out the power play ice time. I'm not totally convinced that Chandler Stevenson's better than he showed last year, and last year he was pretty bad. So I'm kind of concerned about that. I think for me, it's either of the top lines, depending on how much you want to spend, or just move along.
Yeah, he was bad last season and got paid for it. Love to see it. San Jose Sharks with a 2.2 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.8. Tyler Seguin out. Macklin Celebrini out. Maverick Bourque making his season debut for the Stars. Dallas going Robertson, Hintz, Evgeny Dadonov, Wyatt Johnston, Jamie Benn, Logan Stankoven, and then Duchesne, Marchment, Maverick Bourque.
Can I just jump in for a sec real quick? Tyler Seguin's out. So that Marchment Duchesne line is going to change a little bit. They didn't run lines today, and one of their beat writers said specifically that the coaches are still thinking about the line combinations. They're not sure what they're going to do. I was looking at their preseason line combinations, and when Maverick Bourque was healthy, he was pretty much consistently playing with Ben and Stankoven, and then Wyatt Johnston was going to the top line with Robertson and Hintz. So this is just me guessing. And I don't think we're going to know what the lineup's going to be until they hit the ice for warm-up. And that kind of sucks because this is a late game and over half the slate's going to be locked by then. But I think they could go Robertson, Hintz, Dadonov, Marchment, Duchesne, or Robertson, Hintz, Johnston, Marchment, Duchesne, Dadonov, and then Ben, Bourque, and Stankoven. Because they were pretty committed to playing Bourque with Ben and Stankoven all preseason, right until Bourque got hurt.
If those are the lines, like, how do you not play that Dallas top line? And they're not going to be super high owned because it's late in the slate.
That's what I'm getting at, is that, and again, I want to reiterate, we don't know what the Dallas lineup is going to be. Maybe they just leave the Dadonov on the top line and then, slide in Bourque with Marchment and Duchesne and move along. But that is not what, like, I'm talking for like a week and a half in the preseason. That was the lineup that they ran.
Yeah, that is a spicy meatball. Yeah, and Maverick Bourque, very good prospect. Like, Dallas drafting the past 5-6 years is absolutely ridiculous. Like, he is not some slapdick. He is a very, very good player.
No, like he could be another Logan Stankoven.
Yeah. So, like, if Bourque, Ben, Stankoven, like, you can build like Johnston, Ben, Stankoven if you think that's going to be the line. And then if it's Maverick Bourque, you can just put Bourque in and upgrade your defenseman, or you can build like Johnston, Robertson, Hintz, which is a little bit annoying because it's probably 2C. But then you can just adjust to the news. It's the Sharks, man. No Macklin Celebrini. They are a bad team still. I really, really like Dallas here tonight. Maybe it's advantageous that we don't have the lines. Maybe it's disadvantageous. I don't know. On the Sharks side, the only reason to play Toffoli, Granlund, Eklund is because they play a ton of minutes. They're not awful, but this is a brutal matchup. I don't really like the Sharks here. I think Toffoli, Granlund, Eklund in MME is fine just from a minutes perspective, but this is Dallas for me.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in the San Jose side, mainly because they are priced up a bit. Like, that top line is nearly 14K. That's not quite a filler stack. You know what I mean? They should get a lot of minutes. Eklund and Granlund with Zetterlund last year was pretty bad defensively, but could score. So I imagine Toffoli in place of Zetterlund will be pretty good long term. The problem is like 13,900 is fairly expensive, and like you're staring at the Dallas lines on the other side, like another $1,200 with Dodonov on the top line. You can just play Dallas 1. You know what I mean? It's just I just don't have a ton of interest in San Jose. I think they're playable, but Dallas doesn't take a ton of penalties and generally has a really good penalty kill. And that's the one thing that made San Jose viable, was like their power play was actually average last year. Even an average power play goes a long way. If they can't get it done on the power play, I don't know if they're going to get there at 5-on-5. So for me, this is about the Dallas side. And the thing is, like, we just don't know what the lineup is going to be. Like right now, we do have Johnston with Bennett, Stankoven, but we're just guessing. Like, we're just assuming that they're going to take Seguin out and put Bork in his place. We don't know if that's going to be the case. Like, and the issue is like, if you do play Robertson with Hintz and Johnston, it's like 17,700, I think. And there's no other line in the late games that's really around that price range. Like, I guess like Edmonton 2, if you want to play, if you want to go in that direction, like Edmonton 2 and then upgrade a defenseman, or like Philly 1 and then upgrade a defenseman, like you said, or something like that. So that's kind of the problem with going with a Johnston, Robertson, Hintz stack. But at the same time, it's like they're all on the power play together. So even if they're not together at 5-on-5, like you could probably still do pretty well. So I'm really tempted to play Johnston, Hintz, and Robertson stack here. I do like dropping down. If they do go Marchment, Duchesne, Bork, I do like the idea of that line together, or even if Stankoven's there, just because they're perfectly correlated on the power play, and Dallas will give that second power play unit 40-45% of the power play time. So if you need a true filler, I even wrote Dallas 2 up in the picks article today before the Seguin news, but even after the Seguin news, like if Stankoven or Bork is down on that Marchment line, I really do like them. But I'm tempted to just kind of risk it a little bit with Johnson, Hintz, and Robertson, and just hope that that's the line, because again, that's what they ran in preseason.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to have to mess around with some of that stuff, but like, this is a very soft landing spot for Maverick Bork. Like, if you want to like have a swap to Edmonton and Bork ready, like there's ways to get around it. It's going to take some flip flopping, so you might want to build 2 ways and then be prepared. But like, yeah, I don't know. This is a interesting game. Not so interesting. 2 of the worst teams in the NHL. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.8 total heading into Calgary. The Pilot Lights have a 3.3 total. Like, Kadri could play with legitimately anybody, and I think he'd have a decent season in Calgary. He's just one of those guys. Kadri, Kuzmenko, Hanzik, Coleman, Backlund, Zari, Huberdeau, Pospisil, Mantha. Like, yeah, they're a bad team, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but like, they have some decent lines here for DFS purposes, and you kind of got to consider them because the Blackhawks are ass. I also don't mind Chicago top line. We'll get to them in a second. I think a Kadri one-off here is in play, 2-man with Kuzmenko. Hanzik, his ice time is an issue. Coleman, Backlund, Zari, they're coming in with 11.5% projected ownership, which, like, that will put them into the Columbus territory. But like, Connor Zari's had a great season so far. It's, again, cherry pick short sample, but I like Connor Zari one off. The interesting line to me as a filler is honestly Huberdeau, Pospisil, Mantha. They don't get a ton of ice time. It's kind of like the line last year, Kadri, Zari, Pospisil, or whatever it was. But like, Pospisil's look good at center. Mantha is a good player as long as he has line mates, which he does. They're 10-9. I'm throwing them into the bin for a filler line that fits with Tampa, that fits with Edmonton, or fits with the power play stack. I do like them. The bottom 6, Like the one thing that does concern me is they may see Dickinson a little bit, but like at 10-9, they score 1 goal. You're laughing. So there is a lot to like on the Calgary side here, which is just like a scene, but it is what it is. On the Chicago side, it would be the top line or bust. I don't think you need a full stack, but like a one-off Bedard, Teravainen, 2-man is fine. Outside of that, like I'm not in on Chicago.
Yeah, I wrote up Kadri in the picks article today. One, because he's getting is over 19 and a half minutes. It's like he's getting even more ice time than he was last year. Kadri and Kuzmenko are playing to a pretty high pace early in the season, and I don't think that's really a huge surprise. Kadri and Kuzmenko did the same thing in a small sample last year. 14.7 high danger shots for, 13 and a half against. Like that is a really high pace. And the thing is maybe they do run into Dickinson, but you know what else they're going to do is run into Kurashev, Bertuzzi, and Taylor Hall. Buddy, that line is not going to be good defensively. Yeah, I have that Kadri, Kuzmenko, Hanzik line, even considering that they are the most expensive line as the top line for me in this game, just because the others are coming in with so much ownership. But I agree with you. Like if you want to dive all the way down, Huberdeau, Pospisil, Mantha is probably where I would go over Zari and Backlund, just because Huberdeau, Pospisil, and Mantha fit in with those $21,000 lines that we've been talking about, throughout the show. So I do think Huberdeau, Pospisil, Mantha is in play, but Kadri, Kuzmenko, and Hanzik is my favorite line in this game. Like if you don't want to play Hanzik and want to focus on the power play, like adding in a Zari, I think is just fine. He's only $300 more than Hanzik is, and Zari's been playing like 19 minutes a game. So like you can get that line for basically, for $15K, and it'll be perfectly correlated on the power play. Chicago's penalty kill has lived and died by their goaltending, and I don't have any faith in the Chicago goaltending at all. So Calgary won for me in this game. I honestly don't hate Chicago here. Like, if you want to say anything about Bedard and Teravainen, it's that they are better than what the lines were for Bedard last year. Like, I know it's a low bar to clear, but so far they have cleared that bar. Not coming in with a ton of ownership. It's not like Calgary's a great team. I honestly don't mind Chicago 1 here, but I think it's Calgary 1 that's my favorite in this game. And I think Calgary 3, that Mantha, Pospisil, Huberdeau line is definitely in play if you need a filler stack.
Yeah, agreed. Let's get to, I don't want to say it's the main event of the evening, but I feel like as late hammers go, this one sucks if you don't have late players. It just sucks anyway. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.7 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.8 total. Edmonton's panicking a little bit because they're coming off to a slow start. They started awfully slow last year as well, which got the coach fired. And now this coach is off to a slow start. They did go to the Stanley Cup. Maybe they have a little bit of a hangover, but Edmonton going with McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Arvidsson, Nugent Hopkins, Vasily Podkolzin. I just wanted to say that full name just to show that I can say names from time to time. Third line is Skinner, Henry, Connor Brown. Flyers going with Tippett, Frost, Michkov, Konechny, Forster, Jet, Luchenko, Couturier, Lawton, Brink. Take those with a grain of salt because torts will torts. You just kind of got to go with some pairs here. Now, like, is line matching important? Sure. But like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman are going to play so much. They're going to see a bit of everybody here. And if you're wondering if McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman have a good sample together, it is outrageous. Draisaitl does his best work with McDavid. There's a shocker. This is 2C1 wing on DraftKings. They are 25,100. They do have a 25.6% top two stack and 5.1% projected ownership. That scares me for a multitude of reasons. One, low-owned McDavid always scares me. Two, their price. And three, their matchup. Like, the Flyers are a pretty good defensive team, but that line is matchup proof. Like, I remember a slate 2 years ago, we talked about playing that line going into Bergeron, and McDavid scored 2 goals. So, like, this is a double-edged sword for sure, because, like, this is one of the worst matchups that you can have for Edmonton based off the teams that are playing on this slate. The Flyers' penalty kill is good. They're good defensively 5-on-5. Goaltending is just a question. Urson looked pretty good in the season opener. The other side of that sword is McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman can absolutely run anybody over. They're fully correlated on the power play. It would not shock me if they broke the slate. It would also not shock me if the Flyers kept them contained. It would also not shock me if Edmonton had, a good performance, but not enough to break the slate. So, like, I'm at a crossroads here because there's a ton of like 11, 12, 13K lines that fit with them where you're not really like sacrificing a position for it. So, like, I think they're in play in single entry. They're obviously in play in MME. They're just one of those lines. I will play them against anybody. So they're in play for me. The depth of Edmonton here, like, I have no faith that those lines are going to stick together. Like, it wouldn't shock me to see Colson and Skinner flip-flop pretty quickly. So I'm fine with, like, Nugent Hopkins, Arvidsson. But, like, again, that's like cutting off your nose to spite your face with that loaded top line. So it is Edmonton one or bust for me. On the flip side, Flyers lines, again, like, I have no faith in Tortorella. Like, I think a one-off Mitchkov is fine, one-off Tippett, one-off Konechny. But, like, I just don't have faith that these lines are going to stick together, especially if Edmonton gets out to a 1 or 2-0 lead. So on the Flyer side, even with Stuart Skinner struggling, even with the Oilers struggling, I would stick to one-offs just because, like, Torts could just completely just blow up the lineup quickly.
Yeah, I think Travis Konechny at 6K makes a lot of sense as a one-off. He's been playing over 20 minutes a game to start the season. He can get it done shorthanded if the Oilers aren't careful with the puck. So, yeah, I don't mind Konechny as a one-off, but I agree with you. There's nothing that you like. Does anybody actually think Jet Lachenko is going to last the entire game as a top 6 center for Flyers?
Like, Couturier is going to be up there before the game.
Yeah, but, like, I do like Lachenko as a prospect a lot. It's just there's a big difference between being a good prospect that's earned an NHL role, being able to play in the top 6 against the Edmonton Oilers. Like, it's not quite the same league. Obviously, I really do like Edmonton 1. They grade out easily as the best line on the slate for me. By top 2 stack percentage, they're right up there with Tampa 1, 25.6%. So, 5.2 goals per 60 minutes over the last couple of years when this line skates together. That's at 5-on-5. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure that's what the Flyers scored on the power play per 60 minutes last year, and that's what this line does at 5-on-5. Also, like, don't get me wrong, Edmonton's off to a really tough start. I will also say Connor McDavid's been on the ice for 14.7 high danger shots per 60 at even strength this season. A half dozen teams haven't managed that on the power play. Like, eventually they're going to stop shooting 2% with McDavid on the ice, and they're going to fill the net. So I think the problem is just, what do you do after you stack Edmonton 1? There is a lot of value on this slate, right? Like, we just talked about Maverick Bourque, 2,500, Connor Zary, 3,300. There's Pierre-Luc Dubois, 3,500. There are a lot of cheap players to play that are going to get a lot of minutes all across the slate. Like, you can put Edmonton 1 and then just jam value around them if you want. But I think this is a great get-right spot for the Oilers. I really do like Edmonton 1 year. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to pay up for them.
Yeah. And again, that's usually the issue with Edmonton 1. So especially this iteration of Edmonton 1. That is the 9 games. Let's talk a little bit about defensemen and goalies. Top of the board, we have Yossi, Hughes, Werenski, Bouchard, Carlson, Weegar. Not a big fan of the top of the board. Like, obviously, I like Roman Yossi here. Yes, Jake did tell me that to say that. But again, like first game of the season, he played 29 minutes. Second game of the season, he played 27 minutes. Like those are just absolute bonkers numbers. And we've seen him in the 8Ks, like 8,600 at times, 7,600 for those minutes. Yes, please. Quinn Hughes, not enough peripherals for his price there. I like Werenski. I like Bouchard. I like Carlson. I like Weegar. Like Weegar, his minutes haven't been great, but he's been doing good things with them. Obviously, if you are using Edmonton, you're going to need some mid-range and punt guys, and Cliffy has you covered for that.
Yeah, I will also say I think I like the top of the board more than you do. Like Yossi and Bouchard, like I really like them both here. Especially, I wrote about Bouchard in the picks article. He has 24 shot attempts so far this season and only 4 shots on goal. Like eventually he's going to bring up that ratio a lot. Like he should be closer to like 11, if not 12 shots through 3 games. So I really do like Bouchard. Obviously I like Yossi. I think Mackenzie Weegar, he's back in play again. I wish he was playing more minutes. He's only at like 22 to 23, but it's a really good matchup for him. Mid price range, Justin Falk, I think, is in play again. Miro Heiskanen, obviously at home against Dallas. Brandon Montour, like with no Vince Dunn, like other than Roman Yossi, if there's a guy and Evan Bouchard, I guess, if there's a guy I think might play close to 30 minutes tonight, it's Brandon Montour. Not saying he will. I'm just saying if things go kind of wrong for Seattle, he could, just because Dunn might not be playing here tonight. Jacob Chikrin's up to 4K, but no Matt Roy for Washington, so he's probably going to have to play a lot of minutes. Jake Wallman, maybe San Jose doesn't score a lot, but Wallman's probably going to have to block a lot of shots here tonight, and he can score by himself. For cheap guys, obviously S.L. Lindell. For Dallas, Shane Gostisbehere, only, I think, 3,200 on DraftKings, and he had 22 and a half minutes in the first game for Carolina. Philip Broberg, he's not looked bad for St. Louis early in the season. One of the few defensemen who seems to be playing well. I think he's 2,900 on DK. He's been playing between 18 and a half, 20 and a half minutes. Darren Radish, again for Tampa. I mean, if they're going to keep him on the top power play, what do you do? Jonathan Kovacevic, 2,500, might have to block a lot of shots for New Jersey. He's getting 20 minutes plus per game. Same with Dmitry Kulikov in Florida. With Spurgeon out, I do like Jake Middleton again for Minnesota. And again, assuming Dunn doesn't play, don't mind Jamie Alexiak from Seattle.
The big rig. Always love a little Jamie Alexiak. I'll just add Igor Zamula at 2,600. He's been playing, 19-ish minutes for 2,600. I think that's fine. Let's talk a little bit about the aliens that live between the pipes. Jake Ottinger, obviously in play at 8,500. He has shutout potential. Then you have Skinner, Wolf, Spencer Knight, and Soros, and Kochetkov in the 8K range. Don't particularly love that. Dustin Wolf has looked good in his one game. Obviously, you saw he got the saves bonus. I don't know if, Chicago is going to generate 40 shots, but we will see. I kind of like, I don't mind Vasilevsky. Logan Thompson, if you live on Narrative Street, starting against his former team. He did not have good things to say about Vegas when he got to Washington. My dog approves. I don't know how trustworthy this idiot is, though, when he's barking. The other idiots are generally more trustworthy. I just don't like goalie at all today. Markstrom, I think, is okay at 7,400. And if you really want to, I think Decord is about as low as I'm willing to go here. I don't really want to play Merzlikins. I don't really want to play Mrazek. I don't really want to play Urson. And I definitely don't want to play Mackenzie Blackwood. I think if I had to play one of those guys, it would honestly be either Urson or Merzlikins, but I would not feel good about it.
Yeah, I wrote up Jordan Binnington in the picks article just because St. Louis probably will give up some shots here tonight. I think he was 5th by stochastic projections amongst goalies here tonight, so I don't mind Binnington in the mid-price range. Honestly, I don't hate Merzlikins here. I hate to say it, man, but like, I think I'm ready to kind of ride the lightning here and see how far the Columbus can take us to start this season. That's only if you're going super cheap. I'm not saying like go ahead and target Merzlikins. Like, I'd probably go find a few extra $100 and go play Binnington instead. I don't mind Markstrom either. Like, that New Jersey Carolina game feels like if New Jersey wins, it's probably going to be like a 3-1 game thanks to a 31 save performance from Markstrom or something like that. I don't think New Jersey wins that game like 7-5. Yeah, I wrote down Logan Thompson strictly for the narrative street as well. But paying up, I don't mind UC Saros here. And I think Dustin Wolf is also playable. Like, he does have a really good pedigree, lots of minor league success. Like, maybe it just took him a handful of starts last year to get acclimated to the NHL. If you're paying up a little bit, I don't mind Saros or Wolf.
Yep. We might be back tomorrow. It's a 4-game slate. We'll have to wait and see on the GPPs if they pump out some good stuff. Cliffy and I will talk about it. We will for sure be back on Thursday and Saturday this week. Friday's a very short slate. But yeah, look for a tweet for us tomorrow. We'll let you know in Discord as well. As always, if you want to sign up, click the link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. It'll get you 15% off your first week or month. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Going to Calgary with Andrei Kuzmenko.
Wow. I am absolutely, this is like the biggest cop out of all time, but I'm going Forsberg Tuesdays.
Fair enough. I can't hate on it.
I just can't think right now. I'm gassed after talking about this slate. And I don't want to say Mikael Granlund like I've done before. So Philip Forsberg, we will possibly be back tomorrow. If not, we will see you on Thursday. Great GPPs tonight in DraftKings. If you're playing in the big ones, good luck. If you're playing in any of them, good luck. But like, the chances of winning 6 figures in the NHL are very rare. So if you are playing in the spin, good luck tonight. We'll see you possibly tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.